Hello, this is Group 14, and the title of our research is A Comparison of Honorifics and Politeness in English and Korean. I am Dixie Song, and our members are Nian Tran, Rhiannon Jones, Yuri Park, and Alyssa Vo. In this presentation, we will be discussing how the presence of honorifics in language usage accounts for variation in the lexicon of Korean users compared to English users. Languages of East and Southeast Asia have a strong sensitivity to politeness in language usage and within their grammars. TV distinctions, defined as different pronouns or grammatical items used in formal and informal speech, are present in many languages and place a strong emphasis on power and solidarity semantics. In TV distinction, factors influencing the speaker's vocabulary choice during conversation are age, social status, and sex. Koreans adopted honorifics, a linguistic device derived from TV distinction, to create social distinction between speakers. In comparison, TV distinction is not present in modern English, resulting in a softer pressure of politeness in the language and a linguistic gap in regards to grammaticalized politeness distinctions.
TV distinctions originated from Latin pronouns tu and vos, is a concept that was first introduced by Roger Brown and Albert Gilman in 1960. Two forms of address used in speech are tu form, also known as the T form, and vos form, also known as the V form. In English, the T form is a casual or informal expression, while the V form is polite and more formal expression. When TV distinction is present in a language, people who are older or have a superior status will be addressed by V form. On the other hand, people who are comparatively younger or have an inferior status will be addressed by T form, depending on the difference of power. Deference is articulated both grammatically and lexically in Korean. Particles, functional words that alter the purpose of a morpheme in a sentence by attaching to the end of a noun or noun phrase, are used as linguistic markers that represent nuances that will be expressed by stress and intonations in English. The morphological addition of a particle depends on the three honorific systems in the Korean language: subject honorifics, object honorifics, and hearer honorifics. However, in English there are no major grammatical or lexical changes that reflect clear deference. Instead, speakers show politeness and respect by appropriately addressing the listener, using negative forms, modal expressions, polite phrases, or through the usage of the word if. With most of our group members being second-generation Asian Australians, we were constantly exposed to the presence of honorifics and its usage to signal politeness to the addressee. Hence, the absence of honorifics in English was a huge change of grammatical and lexical linguistics, and this formed the core of our research.
The research question that we developed was, Korean distinguishes politeness lexically by incorporating honorific systems and modulating morphemes with particles. Therefore, how does English lexically distinguish politeness without definite systems like honorifics? Anna and Tomoda's 1994 study formed the basis of a hypothesis. The main focus of their study was native Australian English users and their interpretation of politeness compared to the Japanese usage. Casual interviews were conducted with AE users and the Japanese. Both groups were asked to share anecdotes of rude interactions and how the situation could have been handled more politely. Throughout the interview, terms that AE users deemed were indicative of politeness were collated and were categorized into 4 groups as shown on this slide. Obana and Tomoda's study concluded that features that Australians viewed as factors that formed the concept of politeness differed from Japanese. Since modern English does not have TV distinction, Australians classify kindness, friendliness, consideration, and attentiveness as politeness. Their study further highlights that AE users and Koreans have different perception of politeness. It can therefore be hypothesized that AE users will use titles to respectfully refer to the addressee and demonstrate their politeness through manners instead of integrating particles into singular morphemes due to the absence of TV distinction.
An interview will be conducted to test our hypothesis. Our participants are 2 SAE users and 2 Koreans in their 40s, and they'll be asked a series of questions following a typical day of an office worker. Prior to the interview, we will explain the purpose of the interview and also notify the participants on what the data would be used for and that all their responses would remain anonymous. The participants' participation will be completely voluntary, and on their consent form, it will clearly outline that they have the freedom to withdraw at any time, and their voice recording will be deleted after the completion of the assignment. Qualitative data from asking participants 9 questions on how they would respond to specific scenarios will be collected to identify the morphological and lexical differences. An example of the scenario could be, a client comes into your work. However, this is your first meeting with the client. how would you ask them for the purpose of their visit? And then, depending on the responses from the participants, an analysis will be conducted, exploring the use of honorifics and the politeness used in the responses.
In order to analyse the results collected, we intend to create a table comprised of the details about the participant and the identity of the fictional subject, including age and relationship. This table will allow us to interpret how the social distinction between those conversing shows the presence or absence of honorifics concerning the Korean language or politeness for SAE. An example of the table proposed to be used can be seen in Table 1. Honorifics involves features of language that are used when addressing different social relationships and is represented by plus honorifics. The honorifics system is divided into 3 categories: referent, hearer, and bystander honorifics. These classifications define the varying relationships between the speaker and either the grammatical reference markers, vocabulary substitutions, hearer or overlooker of a conversation. For example, an honorific marker in the Korean language used to show respect for an older member is the use of si, which can be seen in Figure 1. Alternatively, a vocabulary substitution may include the verb pianchan as seen as Figure 2, which compares the various honorific sentences when conversing with the superior. In comparison, registers of language are linguistic repertoires that represent the degree of formality in language and are classified into 5 styles. These include frozen, formal, consultative, casual, and intimate styles. In relation to SAE, politeness is a formal register of language which involves clear pronunciation, no ellipsis, and uses particular semantics. The degree of politeness is dependent on social factors, including conversing with a social superior, someone new, or in serious situations. This may involve appropriate addressing, including Mrs. or Miss, softening phrases such as "I'm afraid I cannot," or the use of "if." Thus, identifying the use of honorific markers, vocabulary, and lexical substitutions, along with formal registers within the results gathered, will demonstrate honorifics and politeness in the Korean language in comparison to SAE.
There are a few limitations to our study. Firstly, the sample size of the interview is small and the participants were not randomly selected due to COVID restrictions. A small sample size meant that the results would not be reflective of the population of Korea and Australia. The participants' occupation, gender, and age may lead to systematic errors as these factors influence their response. Secondly, responses of the participants may have been affected due to not being able to maintain ambiguity in some questions in the interview. For example, when the interviewer asks, "How would you ask your spouse when they will be coming home?" the interviewee may use the interviewer's words to answer the response rather than using their own words. In this example, they may respond with "When will you be coming home?" instead of the possible answer "What time will you be home?" without utilizing words from the question. Furthermore, the presence of the interviewer may also inhibit the free responses of the interviewee's answers since there is no anonymity during the interview. Lastly, the interviewee may hesitate to be truthful with their responses because they think it would adversely affect their image or fear the information may be used against them.
To conclude, since the interviews are yet to be conducted, there are no results to determine whether our results support the hypothesis. However, we believe that the interview responses will show that the existence of TV distinction will be reflective of the pressure of politeness. This will therefore support our hypothesis. Thank you for listening to our presentation.